morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today's topic that Saul came up with is surviving game cons.
Yes. So we're talking about game cons that usually take place, or our local game cons take place over a long weekend.
Well, if it's a one-day con, you should be able to survive it.
Pretty easily.
Yes.
Right. And we have those too, but we're talking about 3-day cons.
They usually take place over a 3-day weekend, like Memorial Day, President's Day, Labor Day.
Could take place over like...
Some conventions just take 3 days and just randomly put them out there. So there you go.
But those days are taken here by various cons here in the Bay Area, and they run 24 hours. They usually at a hotel, in a large hotel, not necessarily a convention
When he
center.
says they run 24 hours, they're there 24 hours. I'm not sure that there's actual games at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right. It was usually what...
There's a little bit of downtime.
Right. What I was saying they run 24 hours is that they don't close the convention area off.
Because it's at a hotel.
It's at a hotel, so all the rooms are open. Well, all the general big spaces are open, and for example, yeah.
I'm just gonna say at the last convention we went to, which was KublaCon, I was looking out the window at 4 o'clock in the morning just because I could, and at the hotel that it's at, it's this one. It used to have an atrium in the middle. They called it the atrium. We still do call it that, right?
I forget what they call it now. They changed the name,
but if you're on one of the inner rooms, you used to be able to open the door and you could hear the waterfall and stuff. They've since then closed it, so you can't do that.
They sealed the
rooms, so nobody could fall.
They used to have sliding glass doors and this tiny little 2-foot balcony. But
so this time I was awake because my husband was snoring loudly, and so
was that me, right?
Yeah,
okay,
that was you. So I was looking out the window, and it was like 4, and I saw a guy in a cowboy hat and a lady, and they were both sitting in the atrium level.
Yeah,
and they looked like they were sleeping there, which. Just so you know, when you're at a convention, you do see that, right? People sleeping. I don't know if they didn't have a room or if they just were really, really tired.
Just conked out right then and there.
That's it. I'm done.
Huh?
Yeah.
Nobody else was around? Nobody else was around?
No.
Well, it was 4 o'clock in the morning.
So
I was going to tell you, what was I going to say? I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
So they're open 24 hours, right? And for example, most conventions, they have convention events, convention games, whether they're role-playing games, board games, miniature games, that run between 8 o'clock and maybe midnight. Now, at DungeonCon years ago, there was some wackadoodle, I'm going to call him. I don't know his name. He used to run the Midnight Cthulhu game.
Ooh.
Now, if this was you, Matt, I'm sorry. But he used to start the game at midnight and run till 8 o'clock in the morning.
I could see that because it's Call of Cthulhu, right?
Yes. And he always ran Saturday night, and I never played in this game because I was more senses than that even back then. But the people do weird stuff like that. In fact,
they do werewolf at usually in the
evening
between 8 and a lot of younger kids or teenagers and a lot of adults.
They want to stay up really late.
So they'll do that.
Well, remember we at DungeonCon at the Marriott in
San Ramon.
They would be at the gazebo. And they'd be out there like they had to go past midnight because
I wasn't thinking about those werewolves. I was thinking about the card game where you
card
sit
game.
in
Yes.
Because Ian used to like to go to that, and it was always like late. And as the boys, my son and my friends' kids have been going to conventions their entire lives.
Right, since they were Augustine since he was 6 months old.
Yeah. Well, Ian was like 10 months old when he went to the first KublaCon.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the first KublaCon, but it might have been the second KublaCon in Oakland.
Oh, that was the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had just changed from whatever they were before. Well, I was going to tell you that originally my Alien game was not an original idea. Whoa.
Ooh.
Felipe had gone to this game caucus, I believe it was called. Now, I think that predates KublaCon. There was game caucus and game something or other. And I think somehow
He saw a large game.
It was called Midnight Aliens, so that game started at midnight,
Oh.
and it usually was adults, right? So I don't know how many people he had playing. They had playing, but they were playing the original game. They were using dice, and people were just standing in for aliens and stuff. So it was a very what do I would say?
It wasn't the same game that you and Felipe created.
Yeah, it was
or
different.
Took
Incarnate.
the rules and
I took the idea of the standing in for the people as aliens, but that they started at midnight, he said, and they ran it for I don't know how many times he went to Game Caucus, once, 2 or 3 times, but anyway, he saw it at Game Caucus, told me about it, and I go, yeah, we should do something like that, and then we should do something like that. We should do that at KublaCon. That's a big convention. It was an up and coming convention, so I waited 3 years, and then nothing happened. So hey, let's do it. I just to the chagrin of everybody. So what happens is and then there's these people who want the most bang for their buck. We have a friend that loves role playing games. That's all he wants to do when he goes. So he packs his schedule with RPGs. From the time that he wakes up to the time he goes to bed, he would be playing role playing games if he could, and he usually does. He usually does. So what happens is
he figures that we're there for 4 days. Monday doesn't always count, because he may or may not. He probably won't get in a game because he'll have to take the family home. But Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he gets at least 1 game a day, if not 2.
At least 2. I'm going to say 2, except for Friday, depending on how late they get.
Yeah.
So what happens is somebody like that, let's say that they don't have a family, but they're there to play and they want their money's worth. And they'll play 2 to 3 games a night. And what happens is that you're going to get tired, right? You're going to get exhausted because sometimes, like, especially, I like running my games, my role-playing games in the evening, from starting at 4 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and I run a 6-hour game, theoretically. Now, I'm in a hotel room. Usually they put you in a hotel room. This last time, there was a board room. So it's a little bigger room with a big old huge center table with the executive chairs around it, and it's kind of not in a regular room that you would stay in and sleep in, which usually most role playing games are in our area. They rent the hotel.
Usually it's on the second floor.
The convention rents the hotel room. They take out the bed, or they put up the bed. They put a table in there, and you have a private gaming room, which from what I understand is kind of rare in gaming convention settings.
Unless you're in California.
Yeah, and it's Northern California, because they don't do that in Southern California either. So it's a Northern California treat, and I do say that because what happens is there's no other table noise bothering you, which can be very difficult to run a role-playing game when they're in a massive hall where there's all kinds of people talking, and some people are trying to hear what you're saying, and so it can get very loud and very obnoxious very quickly. So we're lucky here that we don't have to deal with that. I'm there in my room, and I'm supposed to leave at midnight, but nobody's going to come by and say, hey, get out of the room. No, nobody's going to be up at midnight checking out. The convention staff isn't going to.
They understand that games are going to run longer.
Right, and so your game can run longer, right? Mine didn't, because we're all over 50 or pretty close to 50. It was Saturday night, so it was already tired. So we promptly ended the game at midnight. Well, the game ended right on time, so I was very lucky. But there's some games that actually go to midnight. It's an 8-hour game that started at 6. So it ends at midnight, or it ends at 2 o'clock in the morning. But then even that game can go longer. They're going, well, we're almost there to the end. You guys want to keep going as a GM? And the players, if they're enthusiastic, they're like, yeah, let's charge ahead. So they play another 2 hours. So they're going to bed at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
And they have an 8 o'clock game.
And they have an 8 o'clock game. Now, some people will brush off that 8 o'clock game. But if you're
a lot of people will brush off that.
A true hardened gamer is not going to give up a slot in their game. So they're just going to go with a lack of sleep. And that's really going to
make you tired.
Make you tired.
Now, if you're 18 and doing this, it's not going to make you it's not going to be as bad.
You could do it. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. But me in my later years, or not later, but old, I'm a little bit older than a teenager. Because I used to, like I said, I used to go on 4 or 5 hours of sleep at a con every week, every convention I went to. Now, I didn't play games normally, but we would just be goofing off and staying up late, and we would play a game here and there. But we were always just lack of sleep, which wasn't bad when you're young. But when you're older, it catches up to you. But it still catches up to you when you're young. I've been at games, and I've been guilty of this but anyway, I've been at games where people are falling asleep at the table.
One of them was Saul.
Yeah, but that was back before I was diagnosed with diabetes, and I think my blood sugar had something to do with that, because I really could not stay awake, and it was a Friday night game, so it means I had gone to work, and then like at 3:00 in the morning, and then or even earlier, and then I had gone to play, and this game is at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, so I was a little bit tired, but still, usually I could stay up no problem, but I was just like literally I was standing up. I was walking around, and still I was still having a hard time trying to
Stay awake.
to the point where one of my fellow players goes, "Would you feel more comfortable in your bed?" And I looked at him, and I'm like, "Holy crap, that's terrible," right? And he was a fellow player; he wasn't even the GM. So I don't know. I'm fine. And I just got up. I drank a lot of water. I was drinking water, and it kept me awake enough. And I had a good time, and I felt bad because falling asleep at somebody's table seems like you're bored. Maybe. I don't know. Seems that way. So you don't want that to happen. That's terrible. I think I'm guilty of it. I've been in games where other players are kind of guilty of it, and I've done the same thing. I go, "Hey, you okay? Do you want to take a break? Should we take a break, or do you want to go to your room? It's okay if you leave. I understand." And they're like, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they. In this last convention game I ran, I didn't know he was so tired, but he had just driven 18 hours to get to the con, and my game was the first game he was playing in, and he, at around 10 o'clock, he just like, I'm having a good time, but I can't stay awake. He looked fine to me. He wasn't like falling asleep on me, but he said he was real tired, so I'm like, okay, go. So he left the game. I still feel bad about it. I thought he was talking about my game sucked, but no, supposedly he didn't. We had taken a quick break, and he was saying he was having a hard time focusing and paying attention. So, but he was playing a really good game. So anyway, doesn't matter. Get some sleep. Is what I'm telling you, is that you need sleep. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up to you at a count, and you don't want to fall asleep at the table. You don't want to fall asleep and miss a game, especially a game that you really want to play in, because you're too tired.
I agree.
Right. Another thing is, what can happen is, now this one really affects being tired. Usually only affects you, except if you're falling asleep at a table, it affects the other players or the GM. Usually that doesn't happen, but people can just let people sleep. So when you are burning the candle at both ends, you want to sleep as much as you can. You want an extra 15 to 30 minutes. Sometimes you skip taking a shower.
That's never a good idea.
That's never a good idea, right? You're sitting there for 12, 14 hours a day playing the game, not getting a lot of movement. You tend to sweat. You got oils on your body, oils, and you start to smell. There's no doubt about it. And the last thing anybody needs, is a stinky person sitting next to them for 46 hours. Terrible. Don't do it. Absolutely don't do it. And don't think that Axe body spray is going to cover up any of that stuff, because that smells worse than stinky people.
So what you're saying is that to be able to survive a convention, you need to schedule some sleeping time besides not scheduling all games.
Yes.
All the time.
All the time. And take a shower and take care of your, personal grooming, hygiene type stuff. Brush your teeth. You're going to be talking to people. And at the same time, during the convention, you're going to be eating. And I know a friend of mine who always has mints. He chews gum, has mints, which is a good idea. But at the same time, always be able to just take a break, brush your teeth. I usually brush my teeth 2 or 3 times during the day when I'm at conventions, because I don't want to offend anybody.
Talking about eating, one of the gaming conventions that we go to, DundraCon, they always put out the survival guide to the convention. And one of the things in it is, don't just eat chips and candy. You're not going to manage to last the entire convention on that.
Right.
Some people do, and if you're a kid, maybe, but you should.
Yeah, sugar and salt will take you so far, but if you're over a certain age,
need some protein.
over a certain age, that's just going to make you crash really hard at a certain point. And I think that's true. I mean, and then it's not healthy for you, right? I know it is usual fare at a home game. People eat and drink soda
I still
and
remember when we
chips.
were at I think it was Pacific Con, and we were playing with with a teenager. He was like, I don't know, 17, 18.
Okay.
And his mom brought him a thing of veggies, right? And he goes, "Oh, everybody, I'll share this with you," right? And he had celery, and he went on this soliloquy about
MG. Yes.
how good celery was and how he really liked it. It was the best vegetable in the world because you could use it as a spoon.
Yes.
As he was proceeding to devour the spinach dip or whatever it was that his
I think
mom
it was
brought.
peanut butter, wasn't it? It was a spinach dip.
I think it was spinach dip.
Yeah, and I absolutely hate
Saul doesn't like celery, and
hate
I
celery.
was.
I love carrots. Carrots I don't mind. 'Cause did he just have celery?
It was celery. No, there were carrots.
Okay.
and
he
other
he
veggies.
went on and on about celery because it was the perfect food.
Because you could use it as a spoon.
Because it was self-made spoon. I'm like, oh my god, and he just kept repeating it.
And but see, you could tell that they go to a lot of conventions because his mom literally brought him a tray of
Yes.
vegetables
Yes.
and that's what you need to do. You need to make sure that you have lots of good food, healthy food for people to snack.
I have seen that change quite a bit in the last few
think it-
decades.
I think it has to do with the fact that
We're all
one,
old people are played.
no,
Oh.
I think it has to do with the fact that the original gamers had kids and they started bringing their kids, and then those kids had kids and they bring their wives and girlfriends.
Right.
And so it's not just a bunch of guys sitting around a table playing without thinking about that there's someone back there going, "Hey, did you eat right? Did you do this?" Just the idea that there's other people around, right? That you have to, and if you have kids, you have to make sure there's food and snacks for them, right?
Right. I have no idea, but it seems to me that before anything brought to the table, and this is at conventions even, anything brought to the table was usually candy. And people would go, "Oh, have whatever you want." Like they'd throw literally a big old bag of
They
like
still do
miniatures,
that.
right? And they still do that. And I even bought some M&Ms to take to the convention. Of course, I forgot them. This big old bag I forgot a couple pounds of M&Ms.
It's okay. Your son.
Yeah, he devoured it when we got home, and so did I. But I have seen a lot more healthier healthier things come out of people's bags. Carrots is a big deal. Celery, nuts, and stuff like
Well,
that.
if you're going to be there for 4 days and you have kids around, you want to make sure that they have something besides candy and chips.
Correct. That's true. And I think that's a good idea because, like, candy and soda, it does power you for a little while, but there is such a thing as the crash, right? Your blood sugar is gonna go really high. You're gonna be kind of manic, and then it's gonna drop sooner or later. And I think that causes people to get tired, and some people have a problem with that crash, and they can get grumpy and stuff like that. So I think eating right is a good idea. I hadn't even thought
And
about
eating is also a good idea.
Eating
'Cause
is
if
a
you
good
don't
idea.
eat, then
Yes.
you're going to get very upset.
Yeah, usually, and though it doesn't give you a lot of time, usually when I run a game, and every game that I've ever played in, at a certain point, let's say I run it
After a couple hours, they give you a break.
yeah, they go, let's take a quick break. Or they'll go, oh, this is a good time to take a break.
We're going to take a 15-minute break.
Right.
And then you can go and get something to eat and
Right.
something to drink.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the conventions don't give you a lot of food options, but the ones I've gone to, the ones we go to, they usually have like a little store where you can get actual sandwich, even have packaged salads if, are really healthy. Of course, with all the other like
A lot of the conventions have the
con food.
con food, we call it, because that's what
Convention.
the kids call it.
Yes.
And it depends on the hotel and the convention, what they decided to provide. But like the boys love it because after 8 o'clock, it goes on sale for half price, and they'll get 2 hamburgers, and
Or 2 slices of pizza.
so they're carb loading there in the middle of the night. But that's okay because they need to get as much. You want to give them as much food as possible.
Right. So another thing you should do is to survive the con and have a better experience, I think, is to plan a little bit of downtime, plan a little time to spend with your friends other than playing games.
One of our friends plans to spend time with people at the bar because that's cool. And
Yeah.
they can talk, and then they can network and with other gamers.
Or catch up. A lot of times when you go to conventions enough, you're going to have people that you only see at conventions who you consider friends.
Yeah.
And they are friends, right? You may not ever see them anywhere else, but at conventions, because they live far away, they live another part of the state, whatever, or out of state, you only see them at conventions. So when you see them, you only see them at conventions. And I have a lot of friends like that. And passing somebody, say, hey, good to see you, how you been? Passing by is sometimes not enough. Like a friend of ours, he schedules, I'm going to be at the bar at 9 p.m. till midnight on this night or this day, whatever. And that's a great idea. And sure enough, there's a lot of this last game. I know.
So that's the scheduler versus the
Right.
person that
just happens to
fly by the seat of their pants. Saul.
Well, that's true. This last convention at KubaCon, there was these group of friends that I know, and they were just sitting at a game table. They were drinking and having a good time and talking about life and what they were been up to and stuff like that. And I think that's a crucial part of going to conventions. After you develop a lot of relationships, people want to see how you're doing, and not just like some blurb on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, whatever you want to call it.
And board games are a good way to do that because you can play the board game and talk to people, right?
That's true. That's true. If they like playing board games, some people don't. But you're right. Playing a role playing game is a little different than playing a board game, because a board game, you're right, you usually have a little bit of time to talk and have to pay attention during the whole time you're playing the game.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have to take a turn or something like that. In those instances, that's good. But let's say there's a game like I can't think of Seven Wonders, right? There's not a lot of time to chit chat. You can. But a game like that, compared
on who's playing,
compared to let's say, I don't know, what's a game that takes a long time per turn?
Stone Age.
Stone Age, right? Some people might take a long time deciding what to do, or even more like what's the one with the Stephen Cathy have the dystopian game with the dice, all the multicolored dice as workers.
Oh,
Euphoria. Sorry, I had a moment there. So Euphoria, if you're playing a 6-player game, you have a little bit of time between each turn to chit chat with other people as the other people decide what they want to do. So I think that's pretty cool to do that, and I think socialization is an important part of spending time at a convention, since games are social constructs. Anything else on that list over there?
well, part of the social thing is like usually there's a kids room and if you have kids, you get to know the people that run the kids room, right? Because you're dropping your kids off there sometimes, and you have to stay with your kid if he's under 6 or 8 or whatever,
A certain age, yeah.
And then there's so you not only meet the people that are running the room, but also the other kids' parents and stuff, and then that is socialization. Not only teaching the kids how to socialize, but you get to socialize with other people, right?
Yes. I really like the kids game, the way it was run by Becky and
Steve.
Because they were very organized, right? And they had this. They had rules.
Have to be, right?
They had rules, right? You have to be. They had rules. If your kid was under a certain age, I think it was 8 or 6 or something, you had to stay with them.
Yeah.
And then if they were over that age, between that age and let's say 13, there was 2 options. The one, they can come in and out. They had to sign in and out always. Mm-hmm. And the parent had the option to let them sign themselves in or out, or they had to come and sign them out.
Yes. I think they had to be over 10 or 11 to be able to sign themselves out.
Okay. But
because I remember once the boys hit that age, they loved it because they could go to the kids' room themselves and then come find us and stuff like that.
Play with us outside the kids' room. So I think what happens is that was really organized kids' room and / teen room, and it worked really well for us when our son was small and young, little.
So that's one of the things that I was thinking about for surviving a convention. You're going to have kids, or now we have my mom who goes with us, right? You have to figure out what it is you want to do and how to get to do it, and make sure everybody else is doing something right in your group. Like, I don't have to worry about my son anymore because he's 19 and does whatever he wants, right?
Sort of.
But when he wasn't, there was always this, well, when he was little, okay, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock is usually when I would take him up to the room because he was tired and ready to go to sleep. But he wouldn't say that, right? So I would have to bribe him with things like, okay, I'll get you room service, or we have pudding, or something like that.
Yes, there is things to account for if you're not a single person at a con by yourself. Family does have, you have obligations, right? You got to make sure that everybody gets to play a game, and you can't be too selfish.
So you want to play a game every day,
Right.
or sometimes depending on, like, if you have kids and you have to kind of work with each other, right? You play during the day, I'll play at night. I'll watch
Right.
kids, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what we did when Augustine was a small kid. We would all play during the day with Augustine, and then sometimes I would let Jolene keep playing, and I would take Augustine up to the room, and we'd take a nap, or we'd go eat and sit down and eat, or Jolene would do that, and then I would usually reserve to play like a role playing game at night, because that was when Jolene would take Augustine to go to sleep, because Jolene would get tired and didn't want to power through all night, and so
I'm not the real power through all night kind of person.
and I was still at that time, and so I would help watch Augustine. Even when he was little, he used to, at the Kubla Khan, there was an escalator. We'd go up and down the escalator for literally hours, and when
Or it seemed like it.
No, at least an hour at a time, because he just go up and down, and it was like, this was when he was 2 or 3 and 4. As he got a little bit older, he wanted to play some games. We went to the kids room, like you said, but there was an obligation that we had to somebody had to watch our son, and there was no service there, so we would take turns watching him. Jolene would be playing a board game, and I would be watching him and taking care of him. And then, depending on the game, we don't play really long games like Twilight Imperium. We'd play games that lasted an hour or maybe 2 at the most. So we would trade back and forth, and sometimes he'd sit there with us for a little while we played a game, and other times he'd get fussy when he was tiny, and then take him to the room. You do have to figure out what to do with your child when you're at a convention. So when he was a little bit older, we really appreciated the kids room, because it really worked well for us.
So I think what Saul is saying is that when you want to survive a convention, it's not really hard. You just have to make sure you take time to sleep, eat, and then have fun, right?
Right. And I think another thing you should do is look around the convention. Sure, like my friend who plays role-playing games, and that's his main intent on playing when he goes to convention. He wants to play specifically even Dungeons and Dragons, though this last time he was a little late in registering for the games, and so he had to play other games because there wasn't any D&D games available. So, but he actually had a good time. I mean, he'll have a good time no matter what game he plays, but I think he was surprised or really enjoyed. I think he was in a Deadlands game, and then he was in a different sort of game, and he enjoyed them all. So I think hopefully he will be open to playing other games at conventions. Possibly not, since he really loves playing D&D and loves playing those kind of characters. But he really enjoyed Deadlands. He was talking about Deadlands for
That's the other thing. All the different games you get to play at conventions, you get to talk to your friends about them, right?
Right, and that's a good thing, is to experience different games.
Right. Not only surviving the convention, but having fun and learning new things. There's also things like you should do. Like you should go through the dealer's room, even if you're not going to buy anything. At least you can see what's there.
Right.
Usually they have painting or seminars, which I always think are fun depending on what the seminar is.
Right. And I think seminars are pretty cool, because sometimes it's famous people who do the seminars. Like at Kubla Khan, they invited people, game designers, to talk about their process of making games. They had some YouTube people had a YouTube channel come and talk about how they created their YouTube channel and what their experience was after making their channel and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. I find it interesting. I didn't get to go to any seminars this year because I was just too busy. I should take my own advice, but at the same time, I think there's just too much to do sometimes at a convention, but you should take time to look around. That's the last thing that I want to talk about. Like Jolene said, go to the dealer's room, check out what they have available. And now the dealer's room isn't just people selling games and stuff. There's people who make their own dice trays, some pretty imaginative stuff. He made like boxes with laser engraved boxes, laser cut boxes for any, from dice towers to dice trays to all the stuff to hold your pencils and pens. Really neat stuff with really neat.
And also
and
to
stuff.
put those little boxes for organizing the board games.
Right, they call them inserts. Yes.
Inserts.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're pretty neat. People make T-shirts.
There's Hawaiian shirts, and
Hawaiian
there's all
shirts
kinds of different things.
And jewelry.
Yes.
Jewelry is a big deal. Things to use for cosplay, from steampunk items to fantasy coats and masks and stuff. Very interesting stuff.
Plus the board games and role-playing games, because the game stores are there.
Right. And then there's the miniatures, right? You can go look at miniature games as they play them, and you might find something that might pique your interest. Another thing is painting. Now, painting at KublaCon has gone huge.
Well, all of them.
That's true. I was talking to Wayne, the guy who's in charge of the painting area, and he used to be underneath the stairs in a little corner, like literally like the size of a bedroom, right? And then now he's in this large convention area, and he's able to really like expand the paint and take, expand the area where they had professional painters come in, and
They did seminars on how to
and actually demonstrations too,
yeah.
which was weird because I went in there and talked to Wayne, and he was talking about how I was like, they had these tables set up in the middle, and it had all kinds of boxes and stuff in it. I'm like, what's all this stuff? And he goes, these are the people we asked to come to the convention, and that's all their own personal stuff. So they brought their own personal brushes and that, and then what they do is they come in, and then people gather around them, and they show them how to talk. They show them how to talk. They show their technique and how to paint and how their
shading and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, shading, texturing, dry brushing, wet brushing, everything I don't do when I paint my miniatures. So maybe I should go to the painting room and stuff.
It depends on how. There's two types of people that paint their miniatures, right? The ones that go into exquisite detail, and then there's the ones who slap on a piece of paint just to have their army men all the same color.
I remember Augustine really wanted to go paint and take, and he would always paint everything blue.
Yes, well, he was little, and blue was his favorite color.
Yes, and so at one point, the Wayne goes, "Oh, it's okay if he paints, but he can't just keep painting everything blue. He's going through the figures." I go, "Oh no, can I bring my own figures and have him paint those?" He goes, "Oh yeah." So he was so yeah, I had quite an army of blue painted figures from different things, different genres, and then later on I painted over them. But yes, I still have a couple of.
You can't paint them all blue.
Yes. Anyway, experience the whole con. I think you get a better experience, and more than surviving the con, you get a whole experience of what the convention can offer. Our friend who was a role player, all he does is go role playing. He was painting. He went in and started painting some paint. It's
because his son really likes to paint.
Right, and I think he wanted to make that connection bond, and I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I think it was pretty cool. I was like astonished that he was actually sit still long enough to paint a whole figure.
I find going to conventions a lot of fun because, one, you get to meet new people, you get to experience games that you haven't played before, whether you play board games or role-playing games. And then it's a place where you can see all kinds of people that like the same stuff you do, right?
Right.
As long as you take care of yourself, eat and
sleep,
play as many games as you want, just make sure you are eating and drinking and
bathing.
That's Saul's thing.
Brushing your teeth. Yes, surviving a con.
Surviving means having fun, right?
It's synonymous to having fun, right?
So you have to be awake to do that.
And everybody wants to have fun, including the people who are playing games with you.
Yes.
Around you. I think simple, non-complicated ideas can help you enjoy and have a very fun convention experience.
Wherever it is.
Wherever you go.
So there you go. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul.
and Jolene.